On Iwo Jima, the average life expectancy of a U.S. flamethrower operator was just 4 minutes. Out of 380 who landed, only 18 survived. Imagine walking onto a battlefield knowing you had almost no chance of coming back alive. That was the reality for flamethrower men in 1945. Their weapon was called both the best and the worst tool the Marines had. Best, because nothing else could crack Japan's underground fortress. Worst, because it made you the #1 target, and because of the fire itself. Iwo Jima was a speck of volcanic rock, only 8 square miles, but it was the most valuable island in the Pacific. American B-29 bombers flying from the Marianas passed directly over it on their way to Japan. From Iwo Jima, Japanese fighters rose up to cut them down, and anti-aircraft guns took their toll. If the Americans captured the island, it could change the entire air war. Crippled bombers could land instead of crashing into the ocean. Fighters could be stationed closer to Japan. Bombers could carry heavier payloads, since they no longer had to save fuel for the return trip. For the United States, the island was a springboard. For Japan, it was a shield they could not afford to lose. The man responsible for holding it was General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. Unlike many of his peers, he knew an American invasion was unstoppable. But his orders were to buy time, bleed the Marines for every yard, and make the cost so high that America might hesitate before invading the Japanese mainland. Kuribayashi banned suicidal banzai charges. Instead, he turned Iwo Jima into a fortress beneath the ground. American intelligence thought there were 13,000 defenders. In reality, there were more than 23,000. Most were hidden, connected by a web of tunnels, 11 miles long. Bunkers, pillboxes, artillery nests, and underground chambers turned the island into one vast machine of death. Every slope, every beach, every approach had been measured in advance. Marines who moved forward did so into pre-sighted fields of fire. On February 19, 1945, the invasion began. Naval guns and bombers had pounded the island for days. The beaches looked blasted and silent. Marines expected scattered resistance. For the first hour, as the landing craft dropped men onto the black volcanic sand, it seemed quiet. Too quiet. Then the volcano came alive. Mortars, artillery, and machine guns erupted all at once. The entire island opened fire. Marines were trapped on open beaches of soft ash that swallowed their boots and slowed their crawl. Bulldozers sank. Tanks bogged down. The first waves were cut to pieces. Conventional weapons could not root out the defenders. Grenades and satchel charges destroyed single chambers, but Japanese troops simply moved through tunnels and remanned bunkers from the rear. Marines found themselves fighting the same pillboxes again and again. That was when they turned to the M2 flamethrower. The M2 was brutal and primitive. It weighed 70 pounds. Its range was 20 yards. It carried just 7 seconds of fuel. And to use it, the operator had to expose himself, rise above cover, and walk into fire. Once a flamethrower man appeared, he was instantly the primary target. Japanese soldiers shouted warnings and poured every bullet into him. A Marine flamethrower operator recalled, "We were wiped out, all except me. I was the only one who came back alive." The weapon itself was terrifying. A single burst sent a stream of liquid fire roaring into a bunker, filling it with flame, smoke, and choking heat. Marines quickly developed tactics like the wet burst, spraying fuel without igniting, then firing a second burst to light the trapped gasoline. In tunnels, the flames sucked out oxygen and sent temperatures soaring past 2,000 degrees. Japanese defenders died from burns, suffocation, or shock. The effect was final. No one inside could return fire. But the psychological toll was immense. Operators saw the effects up close. They heard screams inside the bunkers. They smelled the aftermath. One survivor admitted, "It was effective, but I've never forgotten the sound." Flamethrower men also carried another burden: fear of capture. Japanese soldiers hated them above all others. If taken alive, they risked torture and execution. Many Marines swore they would never be taken prisoner if they carried the tank. Still, some managed feats of extraordinary endurance. Corporal Herschel Woody Williams carried the flamethrower on Iwo Jima for 4 hours straight, destroying pillbox after pillbox. He later recalled, "We had to teach ourselves how to use it. We didn't know what we were doing. We only knew we had to win." Williams survived and earned the Medal of Honor. But he was the exception. Out of hundreds of operators, he was one of only 18 who lived through the battle. With such catastrophic losses, the Marines sought an alternative. Engineers found one, the Sherman flame tank, known as the M4A3R3. To the eye, it looked like a normal tank, but instead of shells, it carried 300 gallons of fuel. Instead of 20 yards, its range was over 100 yards. When it fired, it poured torrents of flame across pillboxes, trenches, and tunnel entrances. The effect was devastating. One Marine remembered, "When the tanks came up, we stopped our advance and waited. They saved our lives." Unlike men on foot, the tanks could survive machine gun fire. They could advance under artillery. What had been suicide for a Marine became possible with armor. The flame tanks finished what the operators began, but at a fraction of the human cost. Iwo Jima lasted 36 days. Nearly all of Kuribayashi's 23,000 defenders fought to the death. The Marines took the island, but at a staggering price: 26,000 casualties, dead and wounded. For the flamethrower men, the price was almost total annihilation. After the war, flamethrowers were condemned as inhumane, too horrific, too indiscriminate, too cruel. And yet, on Iwo Jima, they were indispensable. Grenades and rifles could not win that battle. Fire could. The paradox remained: the best and the worst weapon. For the Marines, flamethrowers, whether carried by men or mounted on tanks, made survival possible. For the operators, they meant almost certain death: 4 minutes to live. That was the grim truth of carrying fire on Iwo Jima. Their story reminds us that victory in war often comes not from glory, but from sacrifice, horror, and unbearable cost. On Iwo Jima, flamethrower men stood at the edge of hell and stepped forward anyway. If you want more history told with raw facts, subscribe to our channel, Past Declassified. Join us as we uncover the untold sides of World War II.